doesn't matter.
So what is it? What created this?
Okay, there's an old saying that the road to hell pays the season. The sidewalk is that road. Alright. That's what moves you down that hill. That's what takes you down to that road of destruction.
Welcome to another edition Enchanting Insights with Lala. What's going on, everybody? Everybody's sliding in. So what you got going on, Lala? How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm very excited. We have more guests, and it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, we got one heck of a lineup tonight. Hello, Nicole, Catherine, Gary. Boy, does she got something special. So should we just go ahead and start bringing everybody in and introducing them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's welcome everybody. We got Vinny. Welcome to the stage there, Vinny. We got
What's going on?
And we got Dr. Allen. Welcome, welcome. How is everybody doing?
I'm live from Jerusalem, as you can see in my fake background.
You got a shadow person right on your tail. Don't turn around, doctor.
Hey, that's all right. You know what?
Hi!
I got holy water right there.
I know
so
that one.
I got you covered.
Of all of the fake backgrounds, you chose Jerusalem. I mean, WTF. WTF.
Well, I actually took the picture that's in the background, but like 4 years ago. So.
Oh, wow.
Wow, see, now that's nice. That's nice.
Fine. You had to go and ruin my joke by making it relevant. The fact that you actually were there and took the picture.
Oh, well, I am there, he said, with a wink in his eye.
Exactly. I want the mirrored motorcycle helmet. That's what I want.
Me too. I do. Do you guys want to go around, introduce yourselves, and anything you would like to talk about and promote?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoever.
Nobody jump at once now.
That's a motorcycle helmet. It looks like a tinfoil hat, which is preventing the aliens from beaming to him how really ridiculous it looks. But that's not important right now. What's important is I have a new book out.
Very
That's good. Congratulations.
Thank you. The name of the book, I thought you'd never ask, is Secrets of the Real Black Lodge Revealed. It is the third and last of the Secret Cipher, the Euphanaut trilogy. So here it is. Finally, after a very, very long struggle between my publishers and me to get it out with lots of interference from the dark powers.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
Congratulations.
Well,
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll know about that in about a month to see how well it's doing. First week, it was #1 on Amazon for, its genre. But it takes time to find out, how well something is doing. I hope this one does very well, not just because my publisher is pretty generous about royalties, but also it really is a subject that has not been discussed since World War I. And I don't even know why, but fact is that it needs to be discussed because I think we're living in an increasingly dark time. But sources are relatively, how shall I put it, anonymous or choose to be anonymous.
Mhm.
And that being the case, I think it's important to refer back to that penultimate evil authority, which is the Black Lodge.
Mhm.
Yeah, interesting.
Can you tell people a little bit about that? They might not know.
Oh, I would say the vast majority of people who read the book have no previous background on the Black Lodge. I would urge people, and not for the obvious reasons, to it being the third in a trilogy, to read. Well, you can get the other two books under one cover, and the Complete Secret Cipher, the Euphonauts, available wherever better books are sold, as a prelude to reading this. But basically, I was going to do the third book about the secret chiefs of the Third Order, which is something in magical circles that's very important. Those are the Theosophists sometimes refer to them as the Ascended Masters or the Great White Brotherhood, which is a term I think that has connotations that I don't like, so I don't use it anymore, except, as illustrative. But it basically refers to those humans who have ascended to a non-corporeal state and have chosen to help all sentient beings attain. In Buddhist thought, that is called a bodhisattva, someone who has taken the oath to not enter nirvana, as is difficult to describe, until all sentient beings have reached that point, which may be millions of years. I don't know. That doesn't just include this planet or this dimension, but all planets and all dimensions. The opposite of that are those who have attained a very high degree of esoteric, magical, psychic, paranormal competence, so that they also can be incorporeal, but started out as humans. And they choose instead not to attain, but to keep their own exalted position, to keep the rest of us in our place, so to speak. And that is the Black Lodge. And that's what the book is about.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, next up.
Down has been a real challenge because you really need to read the book and probably read some of the earlier literature on the subject. But again, there's a gap from World War I until this book came out, where a lot of people who should know better simply choose not to discuss the Black Lodge for whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right, sir, your turn. Fire away.
Oh, great! You put me on camera. I'm not a dancing monkey. I can't. No.
It's a really nice piano.
Thank you. And if that were real, I would go back and. No, I wouldn't, because I can't play it anyway. So
it's a grand piano, and I assume that you have a background.
It
Unlike me, who is coming live.
Yes, I chose not to choose one of the most political hotspots in the world for my backdrop. But,
Wait, Jerusalem is a hotspot in the world?
Maybe not so much today.
Maybe right behind me, the Temple Mount might be a hotspot in Jerusalem. And
it could be.
Maybe I shouldn't go up there on account of I'm Jewish and that's not allowed. But that's another story.
Oh, Lordy.
Different story, different day. No.
I'll be glad.
Yeah. No, I see. I'm broadcasting from an undisclosed location in Tennessee.
There are no
Aha.
undisclosed locations in Tennessee, except in East Tennessee.
I am in East
Which-
Tennessee. I mean,
Aha! You
I am
see,
in East Tennessee.
you
I'm-
don't say it's undisclosed to a psychic friend, as I used to be.
What
5
do you,
years
What do you,
I
what do you
spent
know
with
about
the
East
psychic.
Tennessee?
I have friends from there.
Nobody has friends from East Tennessee.
Sure
Even
they
I
do.
don't have friends.
They
from
moved to Atlanta like any other rational human being, but they come from East Tennessee, which is a very independent place. In fact,
It is.
it's
It is.
often pointed out during the Civil War, it seceded from the Confederacy for the most part and battled on the Union side throughout the war. So,
This area, East Tennessee, Southwest Virginia, which is where I'm from, Western Virginia or West Virginia, Southwestern Virginia, East Tennessee, was all supposed to be its own state, the state of Franklin, and the area, the region that I'm from, I share more in common with like 4 other states than I do the state that I'm part of. It's a regional kind of a kind of thing. So Travis Short, good to be on the show. First time guest, first time caller, that kind of thing. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate Lala inviting me on the show. I am, unlike some of the other guests, I'm more of what you would call I'm not even a paranormal investigator. I'm more of a paranormal researcher. I enjoy the history researching. I worked on the first feature-length documentary about the Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 66 and 67. That's actually my claim to fame. It cracks me up. My daughter, who is 19, when she was 16, the only thing she wanted to do for her 16th birthday was go back to Point Pleasant.
to the Mothman Festival.
No, she just wanted to. Her birthday is in July. She wanted me to take her and her friends and just take them around and show them the area. I used to present at the festival from 2005 to 2009. I was a regular presenter. I haven't been back to the festival since 2009. Was going to try to get back. Actually, I even told Lala I was hoping that I was going to get to go this past weekend, and I would be able to have some interesting stories. But unfortunately, I'm in graduate school at East Tennessee State University, and coursework superseded going to the Mothman Festival. So I had to stick around and do some homework. So
Interesting. The closest friend I have, another ex-OTO person, went to East Tennessee.
it's
University.
I started a master's several years ago in divinity with an emphasis in theology. Did not finish it. This one I started last year. I plan on actually finishing this one. But I've enjoyed my time at East Tennessee. It's a really, really cool university. I love my cohort. I'm doing brand and media strategy, which is actually what I do on a 9 to 5 is branding, marketing, public relations, that sort of thing.
So you're deciding to go into the 700 Club, right? I mean, you had theology back there and you're doing media now. It reaches a screwy conclusion, but let me tell you, don't go to the University of Arizona for grad and postgraduate work, because I'm a poor man today, and I did. And I don't still have student debts, but on the other hand, I don't have anything to show for it other than being an excellent conversation piece. And I get to put that DR in front of my name, like that means anything.
It carries weight sometimes.
Yeah.
Like,
and in
but-
fact, I went to the.
So do dead bodies. I mean, I'm
Well,
tossing
that's
it
not
out.
that kind of doctor. Scalpel. Nurse. Code. This one is. He's dead, Jim. Oh, Lala finds me amusing, apparently.
Very.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
sorry, go
when
ahead.
I do programs, they say, "Oh, he's just frivolous," and they don't know me. I'm deadly serious. But I do have a sense of humor, and I have noticed the ones who in paranormal areas that go totally, crackers, have no sense of humor at all. Disclosure any minute. Details at 11. Well, I've been a ufologist longer than anybody else on this panel has been alive. And I assure you, there ain't going to be no disclosure anytime soon. Because that's assuming that the government knows something. And they don't.
I would like to hear about the Mothman documentary.
Yes.
What would you like to hear?
Like the whole experience of it.
The experience. The experience
What you
was.
learned.
So the impetus in between 98 and 2003, I was the managing partner of an advertising agency. We had an office in Morton, Virginia, and Las Vegas, Nevada. When we were in Las Vegas, my business partner and I, who was also my best friend, he passed away in 2019, but we would go out and we would spend, a week, 10 days, sometimes 2 weeks. And I love Vegas. Don't get me wrong. I do. I love everything about it, but 2 weeks is like maximum exposure for Las Vegas. I mean, it's like you can't do more midnight meals and shows and meetings and things like that. So we would always drive around in the desert and just go looking for. We found ghost towns and things like that. So we ended up driving to Rachel, Nevada, our second trip out. And Rachel, of course, is home to Area 51. So, been there, been chased off by the Jeeps, the whole thing. But there was, it was called the Area 51 Research Center, which makes it sound like this really, really, prestigious thing. But it was basically a single wide trailer with a bunch of books and some artifacts and things like that. My business partner, Charlie McCracken, and I, we picked up a book by Jerome Clark, and I was driving back to Las Vegas, and he was reading from the book, and we came upon the story of Mothman. And of course, we're from southwestern Virginia. So if you look at a map of Virginia, we're in the southwestern portion of the state, wedged between West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And he reads this story that took place in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. And we kind of made this mental note to file that away, and we would come back to it at some point, because we were always looking for side ventures and things to do creatively and things like that. That was 99, 2000. The Mothman Prophecies, the movie with Laura Linney and Richard Gere, that had just come out, and so it was kind of this interesting topic. Fast forward to 2003, and we were actually working on a marketing film for a small college in Ashland, Kentucky. And we were there one day, and Charlie's thing was he used to love going into gas stations and getting maps. And this obviously, before GPS became a big thing. So, he would go in, he would get the maps, and we would try to find interesting places to go visit. Well, we went into this convenience store, he got a map, and we realized we're like 90 minutes from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So it was like, I was married at the time, he was married. So we called our wives. It's like, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. So we drove into the town, and it was really interesting because we went to the tourism office first. That was our first stop. And I remember walking in, and we were like, we hear about the Mothman, and the girl working the desk just started laughing at us. And she's like, we don't talk about that around here. She goes, if you want to talk about Mothman, she goes, there's some crazy people down on Main Street. You can go talk to them. Well, guess where we went? We went to the crazy people on Main Street to hear their stories. And we just fell in love with the area, the people, the stories. The whole thing became this. It was about the sightings. Obviously, people obviously saw something. We interviewed the original eyewitnesses, Linda Scarberry, the Millettes, several individuals that had seen the Mothman. But it even more, it was this story of this little town that is, about in 1966, it was about 4,800, 5,000 people. It's about the same amount of people today, except for the Mothman Festival, and then it increases to like 10 and 20,000 people because people come from all over the world.
Wow.
But there was this story about this town. The bridge collapsed, the Silver Bridge, the number of lives that were lost, and this little town kept coming back. It kept fighting. It kept surviving. There was this story of the tenacity of human nature that, we can get knocked down, but we will get back up again. We will come back. And that was what happened in this little town. And watching, over 40, 50 years of what had gone on, the fact that when the bridge collapsed, it literally cut this town off from the world.
Wow.
The Silver Bridge, which connected Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, was like a 2-mile bridge. Once that bridge collapsed, to get to the other side, you had to drive 10 miles north, cross another bridge, and drive 10 miles south just to get to a town that you could see on the other side of the river. So it was a 20-mile one-way, 40-mile round trip if you wanted to get across the river. So it was this story about the town coming back, the people coming back. The Mothman Festival started in 2001, right after 9/11. I mean, I think the first festival was 2 weeks after 9/11 in 2001.
Wow.
And so it's just this amazing story about how that not only was there this odd paranormal event, but that this town where this happened kept coming back and coming back. And we worked on the documentary for 6 years. We funded it out of pocket. So we were going up, we were paying for our trips, we were the number of shoots and recreations and finding people with 1957 Chevys that we could use for the recreation of certain shots. And so it was a very interesting, fun experience. It was myself, Charlie McCracken, who I had met when I was in college and we became business partners, and then my cousin, Matthew Fleming. And it was the three of us, and we funded the entire venture ourselves, and it was interesting. I still to this day love going back to Point Pleasant and talking to the people there and visiting with them. It was just a lot of bad things happened in those 6 years, but a lot of really good things happened as well.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Science Bob wants to know, have you ever met John Keel?
I did not meet John Keel, but I did interview him twice over the phone.
Interesting. All
I
right,
knew
there
John
you go.
Keel
Science
very
Bob.
well, actually.
John Keel was a very interesting interview.
Going back to before anybody ever heard of him. I mean, my friend Jim Bosley would call me long distance back when that was an expensive proposition and
Yes.
go on and on. I met this is like 1965. I met this guy. You gotta meet him, Alan. Yeah. Is he contacted? No. He is a trip and a half.
And he
used
was.
that term. And well, you were mentioning Jerry Clark, who I also know. Jerry once said, back in the day, long before the internet, we used to correspond using audio tape. we put our segment on and then send it to the next person. They put their segment on. Anyway, we were having a discussion about Keel, and I remember very well what Jerome Clark had to say. He said, if anybody in this field is one of them, it's Keel.
It's Keel. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a very strange duck. I think, however, that a lot of his coverage of the Mothman thing, which I have a lot of, well, I don't have a firsthand knowledge of Mothman, but I have a firsthand knowledge of the witnesses, was my friend Gray Barker. Playing games with Keel.
Yes.
The phone calls that, first of all, Keel is nothing like what's his name, the actor.
The British actor that played him in the Mothman Prophecies, or at least a version of him. Gear was
Gear.
kind of Keel, and then there was the other character. Keel,
Well,
it took
Keel
us.
never worked for the Washington Post.
No.
He was more like Saga and Argosy and the men's magazines of the early 60s,
Yeah.
like I found the island of lost women, and by God, I'm staying.
Well, and that was the thing. Keel didn't go to West Virginia about Mothman. He was there investigating UFOs and other phenomena. But as far as interviewing him, he was a nightmare because we had to go through an intermediary, and then Keel would only call us. We couldn't call him, so we never had a number to call Keel. He had to call us, and this was back before caller ID and stuff like that. It was. We started. I guess we did the interview with Keel in 2001, 2002, something like that.
Mm.
Wow.
Well,
Not long before he died.
I have an insight into why he was doing that. He wasn't always that paranoid, but he was an arrogant SOB. I mean, he just had his own thing.
You said it, not me. I didn't say it.
He's dead. U.S. law protects me, but he was. I knew him quite well.
I do have a question really quick for Vinny. I wanted to know.
Vinny, let me bring him up.
Yeah.
Let me click a button here. And let's see here. And there we go. Vinny. There we go. All right, Vinny, welcome.
I want to know really
Funkmaster.
quick. Yeah. I'll ask after you tell everybody about yourself.
You go first. You asked me.
Know what made you mix? Is it two passions? Is it paranormal and wrestling, or was it just? Did it start out as just for fun, or?
What do you get? I mean, what do you mean?
Well, you like wrestling.
I actually don't. I am a wrestler because I'm good at it, and they pay me a lot of money to go beat up little kids. But I'm a paranormal investigator. I'm an entertainer is what I am. I was a stand-up comedian. I was a bass player for a funk and hip-hop band for years. I became a professional wrestler. That led me into, weirdly enough, when I was running a television wrestling show with my partner, Big Luke Walker, we got into paranormal television, and we did that. We still have a show that's on a lot of weird small stations across the United States that we do paranormal, and that led me into becoming making movies about the legends and lore of the Great Smoky Mountains, which is in East Tennessee. And we're about to release our third movie, which are B-level horror comedies about some of the hijinks and cryptids and spirits and stuff of the Great Smoky Mountains in North Carolina and East Tennessee. So I just like entertaining people, and I'm pretty good at it, and I just get bored with the genre and I move on to something else. So that's probably my biggest problem. But I just like trying to new things,
That's neat. That's
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well,
I want to help
better
like
than watching
that.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so Vinny, are you shooting in the Great Smoky Mountains, or have you been shooting in the Great Smoky Mountains?
Baby, I've been shooting so much in the Great Smoky Mountains, I'm surprised they haven't tried to arrest me. We've been Gatlinburg, Morristown, Knoxville, Asheville, Bryson City, Abington, and Chattanooga, and Georgia, and Arkansas, and South Carolina, and North Carolina, and Virginia, Bristol, and a whole bunch of other places. Yeah. So we
okay. The next time you're here, you're going to have to message me so we can get together.
We're based, our movie company is based in Gatlinburg. So,
Okay.
Yeah, my tag team partner, Big Luke, who's 7 feet tall. He's my co-writer and all this stuff. And he's a giant man, but he lives in Gatlinburg. I live in Morristown now, but we all moved from other places. We choose to live in East Tennessee because it's a wonderful place.
I'm in Kingsport.
There you go.
That's my undisclosed location.
That's the whole reason I'm on the show. I was paid to find out where you are. Hold on a second.
There you go.
Hey,
write it down.
Go up and get him. He's in Kingsport. We know it. But anyway, so yeah, he's from Chicago. I'm from Baltimore. We choose to live down south. So, so when we were wanting to make movies, we were like, there's tons of crap about Baltimore, Chicago, New York, Texas, LA. I said there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of crazy legends and stuff in the South, and the Appalachian South, that needs to be perpetrated, and needs to be pontificated and allocated and preached about. So that's what we chose to do.
I'm from Baltimore too.
Get out.
Yep.
Get out. Well, that's awesome. My cousin just got married up there. And they had a big crab dinner Sunday, and I missed it. So I'm a little pissy.
My ex-wife was from Baltimore. I mean, so we have that connection.
My father was born and raised in Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah.
In a very, very sleazy neighborhood.
That's where I'm from.
Which is still very sleazy.
Yeah.
Actually, my grandfather's bar, saloon, actually was next door to a house of ill fame.
Can you give me the address for that particular location?
It's not there anymore.
Oh,
we're talking about before Prohibition. My grandfather was, mostly 19th century, but but my dad was, he and his brothers and sisters lived upstairs from the saloon, because that was the fashion among families in poorer neighborhoods. So I had this how shall I put it, sort of girlfriend in Baltimore, and I decided to go a visiting, and I would find some family stuff that I didn't know, because I grew up among my mother's family, not my father's. So I went down to this area looking for the location, the corner of Chester and Low, which actually don't meet, but that was the name of a song that U.B. Blake wrote about my grandfather's saloon. And while I was in that neighborhood, I saw that if it had been there on Low Street where it was supposed to be, it was now a parking lot, which is typical, So I flagged down a cab, and I realized I needed some money to get back to where I was staying at the other end of Baltimore City. Still pretty sleazy, but nevertheless. And I said, "Could you stop at this ATM?" The driver said, "Not in this neighborhood. No way." And I thought, well, it was a red light district back then, and it's a sleazeball district now. Welcome to my father's universe, and why he didn't talk much about it. Yeah, he was a pro basketball player, by the way.
So, Vinny, have you ever seen Bigfoot?
Have I ever seen Bigfoot? I'm in a movie called Vinny's Fantastic Rock and Roll Adventures, where I actually run into Bigfoot in the movie. He goes by Barry, and he's a conspiracy theorist. It sounds like Alex Jones. And And he found apparently on his website he's selling some sort of supplement that he found like a comet landed next to him, and he compounded some minerals. But in real life, no, we were going to on the ghost show that we have, Wrestling with Ghosts, we were going to do an episode, and it just never materialized. We did go and do kind of a Bigfoot type investigation of the Cherokee legend of Spearfinger, which is a legend that is kind of localized to the Asheville, Bryson City, Townsend, Tennessee, North Carolina area, and we ran into some amazing evidence trying to just basically film an episode and have an excuse to go to the casino out there. We actually saw a lot of stuff, but Bigfoot, no. Spearfinger, we did run into some Spearfinger evidence that is interesting. And then from that, we decided to make our first movie, The Hike, about Spearfingers. So
Interesting.
yeah.
I have a dumb question. I don't know what a Spearfinger
Oh,
is.
okay. Thank you. Because I was getting ready to ask the same
It's
thing,
like
and I'm from this
Goldfinger, only
area.
different.
What the hell is Spearfinger?
Well, that's why we decided to make these movies. That, you hear about Mothman, you hear about Bigfoot, you hear about all
Right.
these, you hear about all these characters and stuff. And there's so many things in this area that is not talked about. There's Spearfinger, there's the
Wampus Cat.
Boojum,
Wampus Cat.
there's Rabbit Man. There's the secret of the Oak Ridge supercomputer and stuff like that. There's the little
Wow.
people in the mountains,
Yeah.
and so Spearfinger is a Cherokee legend, and you can look her up. And she is a rock golem. She's made out of stone, and she has a very long obsidian finger, which is why they call her Spearfinger. But she's a mimic. And she can sound like the girl you want to screw in the tribe, or a little kid, or your grandmother, and she will beckon you off the trail, and then she'll stick you in the liver with her obsidian finger and eat your liver, and then you've been spear-fingered. And the Cherokee killed her, according to the legend, many, many moons ago. And the reason we went out to do the investigation in the first place is in the Smoky Mountains for about 2 years. And if Luke, if you're in the chat, or anybody from our group is in the chat, tell me if I'm wrong. But in about, oh my God, I got the Fembots here. They bring me, I got them programmed to bring me drinks about every hour. So sorry about that. Thank you, Fembot. We're up here on the mothership here. So anyway, over about the course of 2 years, it was about 18 deaths in the Smoky Mountains attributed to falling trees, which is extremely high. That's an extremely high number. So we said, heck, let's just go out, go to the casino, and we'll sit there and we'll talk to the Cherokee people about Spearfinger. And when we went out there, they were very guarded because I guess I was wearing a mink coat and a hat similar to this, and they didn't want to talk to me. But eventually we got some information on how to find Spearfinger, where's the best place to look. And we ran into something that was purporting to be her. 13 people died from falling trees and 5 from rock slides. So yeah, it was something around those numbers there. So that's an exorbitant. And so Spearfinger can also shapeshift, but she also can control nature. She can throw rocks. She can knock down trees and stuff like that and kill people and then eat their liver that way. So yeah, we went out and we got some good evidence, man. I'll tell you, it was pretty amazing.
So would Spearfinger be an elemental then? I mean, is that a?
That's a good question. I mean, she is made out of stone. And they couldn't kill her. The legend goes, and this is the funny thing. We went out to the reservation, and they were all guarded, even like the fast food workers at Arby's and stuff. They were like, why do you want to know this? And we're like, well, we want to exploit your culture. No, we were just like, we're just curious, and we want to, know, and we're doing an episode, and we heard about this, that, and the other. And after they kind of got our trust, and we ordered a number 2 off the menu, Yeah, we still weren't able to find out why a rock golem needed livers. But anyway, the Cherokee couldn't kill her because she was made out of stone. She had stone skin, and they would try to kill her with the arrows, and it would bounce off her skin. And she had a weakness, which was her in her hand, and they finally pierced her hand, or I guess she held her heart in her hand, and they finally pierced it. And that was, it was like, they it was part of their culture. It was part of, I don't know if anybody really believed that was real, but it was part of their culture, and they were kind of guarded about it. And then they started giving us good information about it. And so what happened, I don't want to take over the podcast, but since Spearfinger's not talked about, we'll tell you what we did on our episode here. If you guys, it'll take a couple of minutes. Yes, and she killed her husband, Rockman. This sounds like a bad comic book. But thank you, Luke.
Spearfinger and
Rockman sounds like something from the 50s. Action Comics. So when we went, there's a city called Bryson City. It's very lovely, and it's kind of gentrified, and it's got sandwich shops and stuff that are really nice. And so people from the East Coast have went down there and bought houses, and basically you can't live in Bryson City unless you're a millionaire. But there's a road that shoots out of there called the Road to Nowhere. And it's literally 15 or 20 minutes of highway that has no houses, no gas stations, no industry at all, no strip mines. It's one of the oddest places on the eastern seaboard. And it goes to a place called the Tunnel of Nowhere, which then eventually goes out to a trail. Now, the Tunnel of Nowhere has probably more penises spray painted inside than anything I've ever seen per capita in the United States. Probably holds the world's record. Another world record it holds is, they say, the Nolan Creek Trail is the most haunted trail in America. I don't know if it's like college football and they play each other every week, but somehow it's rated number one. And lo and behold, Spearfinger, what you know, it lives, her path that she traverses is on the Nolan Creek Trail. And so they said, if you see orange lights, go Vols. If you see orange lights, that is a warning that Spearfinger is a boot. And that the other spirits are trying to warn you. So we get down on this trail. It's 2 a.m. Keep in mind, you can barely get radio signal up there. The closest town to us is a town called Proctor, which they flooded out years ago. There was a movie theater, a dentist office, a logging community, and then they flooded it out. That's the closest city we're at. You can't even drive to it. You got to walk to it. There's still like rusted out cars and stuff there in the mountains. And so that's the closest town we're at. 2 a.m. There's not a soul out there. And all of a sudden, we see 3 orange lights doing this kind of gobbledygook. We capture one on camera, and that's on our show. And we were sitting there like, okay, that's weird. So we start going down the Nolan Creek, the most haunted trail in North Carolina. Ooh. And to the right is a stream. Now, I know a lot of paranormal people talk all the time about how water sounds like human voice, and also that water generates energy.
Energy, right.
But it's funny. Water sounds like human voice, so you can kind of conflate the two. Is that a lapping water, or is that somebody trying to say my name, or order a sandwich off the menu or something? But when we were walking down to the right, all we heard, screaming, yelling, ladies screaming, men screaming, people talking, threatening tones. Can't make anything out because it's too noisy. But it was like, blah, 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 blah. It was nuts. We're sitting like, what is happening over here? It sounds like a gibberish convention or something. So we're walking. Well, if you remember, folks, I told you Spearfinger is a mimic. So in front, Luke Walker, who's in the chat for some reason. I guess he's off work tonight. He's a musician and plays in Gatlinburg all the time. And yeah, I'm getting to that. Shut up, Luke. Don't shoot my shot for me. So anyway, yeah, lots of gemstones. Luke's also an amateur gemologist, which means nobody's ever touched his winky. No, I don't know. He's a good-looking guy. He's a musician. I guess he balances out. But anyway, so So, all right, I saw that. There's something else going on here. Anyway, so there's a lot of gobbledygook. Spearfinger's a mimic. Luke is in front. He's 7 feet tall, and he's got this big gravelly voice that makes all the women go, woo! And behind me, we got a group of people, our whole team, El Gordo Gringo, who's a wrestler, and Candy, and my daughter, and myself, and Luke's in front. And I hear behind us, and it's recorded on tape, you hear this, hey, guys. And it's Luke's sexy voice, and who's 15 feet in front of me, is behind me. We all turn around on camera. Chocolat bleu. There's nothing there, obviously. We're like, that sounded just like Luke. We stop the tape. It's a disembodied voice. We go back. Boop, boop, boop. Hey, guys. Right behind us. And if you've ever done investigations and you're listening to recordings and you do it a lot, you can understand, you can hear your friends, right? The people that you go out with. You can identify if one of your lady friends, if she's breathing. You can say, okay, that's Candy's nose. That's El Gordo Gringo's asthma. That's Luke's knees popping because he's an old wrestler like me. That's somebody passing gas. I can actually tell who that is by the sound of the fart because I've been with him so long. You can hear everything. So when it sounded just like Luke's voice, and it's in the same frequency. Freaky. Sometimes when you hear EVPs and disembodied voices, it almost, if there's like a 3-dimensional thing with the stereo, you can hear it like everybody else is kind of like on this wavelength, like right here. And then the EVP is up here. And it almost sounds like it's coming from outer space or something. So we freaked out a little bit. And then about 2 minutes later, a rock, we're getting to your shot here, Luke, and maybe you can tell me what this was. A rock flies out of the woods. And this is on camera too. It came this close to hitting my daughter in the head, and it hit the tree. Smack, like freaking Nolan Ryan pitched it. It was a humdinger. And like I told you before, Spearfinger can manipulate rocks and trees, and the thing falls down, and Luke goes over and picks it up. Now, Luke is an amateur gemologist, which means he's never touched a booby. And he picks it up. Yes, I'm wearing brass knuckles. It's in the chat. So, hey, I'm from Baltimore. You never know what's coming through the windows over here. So anyway, he picks it up and he says, this rock does not belong here. This is not something that's indigenous to this area. And you can look for a day and not see this type of rock. Now, I can't, Luke, are you still alive, or is someone finally actually trying to make out with you or something? You can put whatever that rock was if you remember it in the chat. I'll point it out. So we keep going, and as we keep going, all the noise is going down to the right. Gobbledygook, blah blah blah, screams, terrible tones. We get down to a point where to keep going down Nolan Creek Trail, you got to cross over a beaver dam. It was shelled, which should have not been on the west side of the mountains. You could tell Luke went to public high school in Chicago. Thank you, Luke, for your thank you. So we get down to the river, and it's a beaver dam. And we're all klutzy old pro wrestlers, and I didn't want to carry anybody's fat ass out of that trail. So we were like, let's not cross the beaver dam at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and it was a little cold out. So as we turn around, I don't know an entomologist. I wish Luke was an amateur entomologist. My daughter's legs, all of these monarch butterflies came and landed on my daughter's legs. Now, somebody in the chat may know what this is, because I don't know. We are paranormal jobbers. We do this stuff, and it's fun to watch our show because we don't know what the hell we're doing. But I know monarch butterflies are not nocturnal. There's a word for that, but I went to public high school in Baltimore, so I don't know what that word is. But not nocturnal is, I don't know, something with a D or something. I know monarch butterflies aren't partying around, 3 in the morning or whatever. And they were all landed on my daughter's legs. Now, here's the caveat to all this. As we turned around and left, because we're too chicken to go across the beaver dam, that water we heard now on our left side over here, not one peep. We didn't hear a scream. We didn't hear a boo. We didn't hear, I hate your guts. We didn't hear, you got a nice butt. We didn't hear nothing all the way out. So we went all the way out, peaceful. And you could tell, and you guys know this, all you knuckleheads that believe in the paranormal jive like I do, the tension had lifted, right? You guys have all experienced that, right? Where it feels like the ghost just said, screw this, or they passed the test, or it's past my bedtime, or whatever it is. And it just felt like we were a bunch of friends on a nice little night hike. There was no more whoo and whoo my neck, and there was no more gobbledygook. So that was so significant, that little trail, that we decided to, man, we should make a movie about Spearfinger. And we decided to do that when coronavirus hit and all the production houses shut down. And so we had fun doing that too. We had a great time shooting some of that stuff. But that's Spearfinger, and that's our experience with her. And anyway, that's a cryptid that we actually, I don't know if we saw her or not, or if that was her or whatever, but something was hot on that trail that night.
Sound
An
like
angry
Bigfoot.
poltergeist of some sort.
Right.
Yeah,
But,
Bigfoot
you
is what
know,
it sounds like.
If you really take a look at the, I mean, there are ghosts and UFOs and little people and all kinds of cryptids and phenomena everywhere. But there are hot areas, and Appalachia is wherever you go, West Virginia and Kentucky especially, that is over the Mammoth Cave, which is pretty much runs the whole length there. You find all kinds of phenomena, sometimes multiple phenomena in one location, which has long since led me to believe that all of these various phenomena, plural, are essentially manifestations of the same phenomenon. That is something related to the cavern structure or whatever seems to emerge from that. Maybe I use the term portals, which I borrow from physics, but I can't know. All I can tell you is the phenomena is localized, and if you are a fan of ley lines, it follows the ley lines. The location that Vinny mentioned, that trail is right on a ley line. So actually, where two ley lines cross. So if you keep track of these things, pun intended, you would sort of, even if you didn't know, you would predict that sort of thing would be going on there. I mean, I'm very happy with my friends, the Newkirks and their associates, Hellier series, because it shows not the only and not the definitive manifestation, but the atmosphere that you get anytime you do field research in that area. And I think Travis will bear me out on this. It's just saturated with cases. If you go out and you don't act like some, pardon my French, asshole from New York wanting to get an interview, you will find I'm a native Georgian, so I kind of know the courtesy that you get out in the country. And if you don't do that, you get a lot of doors slammed in your face, and conceivably a visit from the local constable to find out how you have to leave the area. But, if you handle it with a modest amount of decorum, you get some absolutely fantastic stories. I could mention this about my friend Gray Barker. May he rest in peace. He certainly didn't live a life in peace. He had the relatively unique circumstance that he was living right in the middle of West Virginia at a time. He's from Clarksburg. Well, actually, he was born in Rifle, Virginia, but spent most of his life in West Virginia. and was there for the Flatwoods Monster case. He was first on the scene, and was there for the whole Mothman cycle, which he wrote a book about called The Silver Bridge, which I was asked to do the introduction to, which I did back in the day. And then I hate my introduction to it because I was a kid when I wrote it. So I wrote a new one, and the current edition has my new one saying, wait, ignore that other introduction from that stupid kid Greenfield. Read this one, because Greg takes a lot of flack, but he really was on the scene. Also, one other thing about that, and Travis might be interested in this, Gray recorded an interview with the Scarberries and Malats issue, like 3 days after the TNT area episode and before the bridge collapse, I believe. And he sent me a copy of that. And I don't know, it was originally on cassette, and then I transferred it to this. Anyway, I uploaded it to my YouTube page, which is not where I spend a lot of time. So it's there free for nothing, and y'all is welcome to it, because it's like on the scene. And also it helps me a little bit for people who say Gray was just a clown. No, Gray was a person with many sides, and that was his serious ufologist side. And otherwise he wouldn't have gotten the interview. I mean, they were, you know, the witnesses were already taking flack. And so
yeah, and I was going to say that was one of the things that we discovered even 40 years later, is that these eyewitnesses for the Mothman sightings, they weren't seeking attention. They didn't want to do these types of things. They had spent an entire lifetime being ridiculed for what they saw and what they said they saw.
Well, keep this in mind. They were out in what is locally known as a makeout area, the TNT area. And Gray always thought that there was, and I agree with this, that there is a sexual component to calling in some really creepy creatures. And I think that is the case. That's what that area was. And I'm not sure that they were totally candid about what they were doing out there, but it was definitely, nobody drove into that area that was not out there to deck or pet or even something more interesting, you know. So there you have it. The inside dope on the TNT area. There's no TNT there anymore, but it can be very explosive.
In 2009, one of the igloos exploded.
Well, yeah, most of them are empty. So, but
I have been in, I've been in some of the empty ones, and some of them are still sealed. But yeah, and because 2010, 2009 we were there. I wasn't there in 2010, but it made national news that one of the igloos actually had exploded.
I wonder if that is something that was left over from World War II, or whether somebody went in there, good old boy, with a couple of sticks of dynamite, a former miner, and decided to make headlines. You know, I mean,
yeah, it's possible.
It's quite possible. There's not a lot to do.
It's probable, not just possible.
Yeah, there's not a lot to do in little towns in West Virginia right now, which is one of the problems there. I mean, the whole mining industry has gone to hell, and it's there are a lot of very angry folks in Appalachia, and anger and sex and cryptids all go together.
Sounds like my honeymoon.
Thou wilt.
You just kind of described a movie I want to make. Anger, sex, and cryptids. I think that's...
Well, I'll be glad to help you out with that. And you don't even have to give me a credit, because my eldest son is in the movie business. I'm not. Also, he moonlights in the wrestling world, not as a wrestler, but as a director in what they're not supposed to be. Writer. Don't tell anybody. Oh, Travis just got eaten by the Mothman. I'm so sorry. Travis, come back.
I think he
Oh,
failed.
Bob said he asked a question a couple of times.
Travis, are you okay?
Give me a second. Give me a
Backstage assault.
Travis,
yes,
Okay,
I'm back.
I just-
Sorry,
I just wanna make sure you're okay
my
there.
laptop was dying. I'm sorry, I did not get eaten by Mothman.
It sounded like he just fell on the floor.
I just wanted
That's
to make
not
sure
the
you're
real
okay.
Travis. They just
It's fine.
substituted the homunculus. I'll test him. Where were you in 1994? Aha! He doesn't know because he's the substitute. Ooh, I'm kidding, folks. I kid sometimes. I see
I
you
just
signed
needed to-
Bob.
I just needed to put my laptop
fanboy,
on
as
charge.
self-described, is here.
What was Bob's questions, Lala?
I told him to text. He's telling me now what it is.
I must have missed it somewhere. They had me in stitches a minute ago. I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry. So
He loves Alan. He's like, oh my God.
In a platonic sort of way. When somebody
Yeah,
describes
yeah.
himself as my fanboy, I generally think of my female friends. But, whatever. Sells books.
Ask Alan to tell us about Hellier and secret cipher of UFO knots.
Okay. You just asked Alan to tell you about the
That's
secret
what Bob
cipher.
wants to know. Bob's question.
Secret Cipher of the UFOnauts was the first book that was, well, not the first book that I wrote, the first book that got published by a real publisher. And it dealt with some things that are out of the occult world that I realized were applicable to the UFO world. And I had always, going back to the 1960s, really, what would be the right word? Was bemused by the strange names that contactees and even abductees would give to supposed planets that the supposed aliens came from, and or the personal names that they gave. A favorite example from what we'll call the Mothman cycle, that would be a good name for a movie, would be Indrid Cold from the
Yes.
Woodrow Derenberger case. And there is a code that was supposedly transmitted by Iwas, a predator human being that Aleister Crowley received his holy book, the Liberal Vel Legis, the Book of the Law, from.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is very Crowley-esque, but nevertheless, there is a cipher in it. And Crowley was never able to crack it. It has been erroneously said that Freder Akkad, his magical child, his alienated child, we all have one of those, was able to crack the first three letters, but it was a guy named Jim Lees in England in the 1970s that cracked the code and was able to get all sorts of information on occult matters that had words and descriptions that seemed to be amenable to basically Kabbalistic analysis, only using the English language, which is quite different because Kabbalah originally is a Hebrew thing, and Hebrew has 22 letters, English has 26, last I saw. And so you have adjustments to make. And I was shown this by a fellow occultist who said, look, this is an occult thing. And I said, oh, well, that's nice, because other people were working on that. And I thought, what about Orthon? What about the planet Arianus? What about all these really funny names that you get in trans-channeling lore and contactee lore, and even sometimes in abductee lore? And I applied this cipher to some of those, and I went, whoa, there's a book in this. And I went to Illuminate Press and I said, well, you turned me down on my autobiography saying, you're not famous. How about this? It's about decoding the entire UFO mystery if you have just a single clue, like a name or a place name or whatever. And they published it, and the rest is history. You can get a combined edition of Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts and Secret Rituals of the Men in Black, or you can get them individually, but it has my current publisher, not the same one, brought out the complete Secret Cipher of the Euphonauts, which, since my new book is out, is no longer complete, but I'm working on that. But you can get two for the price of one, sort of. So go to, Barnes & Noble or Amazon or whoever the hell has it and buy it new. I don't books when they go out of print reach insane prices on the used book market. And that happens with other authors too. And I think that that's really something that is kind of despicable, but all of my books but one are in print. So you can get reasonably priced editions, even maybe a Kindle edition of the new one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Travis.
cheap.
Brian Barber's got a question. Did anyone try to interfere with you making your movie? Some people don't like the secrets exposed.
We didn't have what I would say interference. There were a lot of things that happened over 6 years is a long time to work in a documentary. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened over those 6 years. I had some issues that arose. Charlie was in the hospital for a while. He was basically he was diagnosed with malaria without being diagnosed with malaria. He had all the same symptoms of malaria. We actually made it onto there. At one point, there was a website, the Mothman Curse of Mothman or Mothman Curse. I can't remember. All of us ended up on it because we had a bunch of things that happened to us that kind of put us on that in that timeline. As far as anyone trying to stop the movie, no one actually interfered or tried to stop. And I do apologize, guys. I have to jump off of here, and I do apologize. I've got another.
Sure.
I've got a 10:30 Zoom, and I also have a paper that's due at midnight. And my professor is not a Mothman fan, and I don't think that being on the show is going to win me any favors. So
thank you for
Hey,
coming on.
it's been a pleasure. Thank you,
please,
Travis.
I would love to come back. This has been great. You guys are awesome. Lala, thank you very much for the invitation. And I do apologize and I have to bow out, but I've got a couple of things that I really have to do tonight. So I apologize, but
no, it's honor's been ours.
Just send you my email address because if you're really still interested in the whole Mothman cycle, I'm one of the last of the firsthand.
I am very interested. So please, yes, get in touch with me. Send me your contact info, and we'll stay in touch because going back to Lala's question, the documentary. There were some issues around 2013, 2014. The movie came out of circulation. I'm in the process of trying to get it back into circulation. And there's also a sequel that I want to do. So.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
That's great.
So,
well, thank you, Travis. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good evening.
You guys too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I have a
nice
question.
gentleman.
He's really
go ahead.
sweet. What is an experience you've had that you'll never be able to forget? Paranormal or otherworldly or anything like that? Something freaky? Not that way.
I have been an investigator and documenter of all kinds of borderland phenomena for more years than I care to mention. but I have only had a couple of rather minor experiences of my own. And they don't even, I've tried to describe them because everybody wants to hear your experiences. I didn't start out as an experiencer. I started out as a seeker, an inquirer. And most of the experiences that I've had involve magical rituals, which open portals and things of that sort, which
Okay.
are difficult to describe. They're difficult to do, but they're far more difficult to describe because they're very subjective. But I'll tell you one from my youth, and I guess I was about 15 when this happened, and I have to give you a little bit of the architecture of my parents' house, which is about 2 blocks from where I'm sitting right now. But on the room that I was in, watching television into the wee hours, was a den. And on one side of the den was the kitchen, and off of that was a laundry room where my dog slept. On the other side were the upper floor and the lower floor where my folks slept. It was late enough that I think they were all bedding by. But I stayed up to watch a program, which in those days there weren't 452 ghost hunter programs on television. This was a rarity. It was called The Stately Ghosts of England. And I'm sitting and watching that. About 20 minutes into it, I hear from the kitchen area, well, I was, 15? I panicked completely. My heart raced. I ran. I must have gone through every prayer and ceremony that I knew at that time, more limited than it would be later than that. Left the room, started to run to my daddy, and finally got my courage together because I really wanted to see this show. This is pre-videotape. There was actually, that program is available. It did have some interesting aspects and some stupid ones. But I went back after about 10 minutes, sat down, but my heart's still pumping. I'm pumping adrenaline. Okay, so I am wide awake, alert, but watching the program again and again, a second time. I didn't panic as much. I went and took a look. I wanted to see if my dog was dying or something. Nope, he was asleep. And before that, never anything of that sort. After that, never anything of that sort. Never anything that I can think of that happened in the many years that that's where I grew up, in the house that I lived in. So I guess that was a paranormal experience. I mean, at one time I questioned it. Maybe I, hallucinated it. But twice, when I'm pumping adrenaline, that seems very unlikely.
Right.
There was a ghost in my kitchen.
How about you,
Wow.
Vinny?
What was the question?
What's an experience you had, paranormal or alien or otherworldly, that you will never forget?
He's had the rock monster throwing rocks at him. What do you want?
Another one.
God, man, I've got so many. It's hard to pick. I mean,
Or just odd.
well, it's bad for radio for me to sit there and go, man. So we do we do the paranormal show called Wrestling with Ghosts, and we use a lot of humor in it because we feel like a lot of the ghost shows on television are way too serious, and if you go into a place that is haunted or there's energy or whatever, if you go in going, how did you die? What happened here? I mean, if the spirits are real and the ghosts are real, they don't want to. They don't. I mean, can you imagine being 2 a.m. and a bunch of freaking white people come in and they're sitting there going, "What happened? Did you die?" I mean, you'd be like, "Good grief, I'm trying to sleep." So what we try to do is we bring in a lot of humor. We have a mantra that says we joke with the guys, we flirt with the girls, and we tease the kids. And because I'm not scared of ghosts. I don't get creeped out. I don't get the hair on my neck. Now, if I climb a step ladder to try to clean out my gutter, I feel like I'm about to have a panic attack. I can't handle heights. But when it comes to ghosts and demons, stuff like that, they don't bother me. So we kind of do things a little bit more, we take it a little bit further. And there's 2 episodes of our show in the first season, Wrestling with Ghosts. And I think if we're going to answer this, to answer what I've seen that I'll never forget, there was an episode. There's a town called. This is another reason why I like going to places and talking about things nobody really talks about. There is a town in Tennessee called La Follette, Tennessee, and Mr. Greenfield may know. I think I've heard this before, that it's on ley lines up there. I don't know anything about ley lines. There was a girl that I knew whose name was similar from Hawaii, and she could do a lot of crazy things with her legs. But ley lines, from what we're talking about, La Follette is on top of these things, and it's the most haunted city that I've ever experienced. In fact, there's several locations there with crazy stories, and to make this a little bit, to become an ally of brevity, there's a building up there called the Old La Follette Post Office, and it was a saloon it was like a man's only saloon. And this was, because for some, I don't know why you'd want to go drink without women, but that's what their prerogative was back in the day. And then it became this post office with a very strange layout. Like the inspector, the postal inspector, could come in on the bottom floor and climb up ladders and look down at the people fooling with the mail. Because back then they would mail jewelry and cash. There was no credit cards and stuff like that. There were no checks. So back in this era, people would mail each other gold and stuff. So they were trying to make sure the postal inspectors had these slits back in the rooms where the postal inspectors are supposed to kind of creep down, all matte black. So you couldn't go up there and see, oh, well, the postal inspectors here, we're going to be good. You have no idea when they're going to be there. So there's kind of this paranoid vibe in this place, and they did not like women. And for some reason, we had a live Facebook stream, and we were doing something where, like, if you came and investigated with the cast of Wrestling with Ghosts, you got some sort of, I don't know, we gave free dog chow to homeless dogs or something. I can't remember what the charity was. So we had about 20 people in this thing that just showed up, just trying to do something fun with a bunch of knuckleheads. Well, within 35 minutes, everybody had left because it was so freaking creepy in there. There was so much going on. And like, everybody was like, I'm the freaking frick out here. Goodbye. And they would like leave. And so it was the crew that was left. And there was all sorts of stuff. EVPs, banging on the walls, thrown pop bottles at people, and things with sense of humor. It's like, one guy would go down the steps and all this stuff would fall on top of him. The doors would slam. There was mockery. In fact, one time it kept following the women. Like it would throw stuff at women. It would slam doors behind women. All this stuff was captured on camera for the most part. We saw a disembodied. We saw. You know how there's like a fall. You know how you kind of can reconstruct like a floor, and maybe back in the day the floor was higher. We were kind of in a period like that where there was like a lowered basement or something. And we saw and we captured on the camera legs walking about 3 feet above the ground. Lockers slamming. You would ask it to do things. And so what I did is I said, you need to leave the women alone. Leave the women alone. And if you're going to pick on somebody your own size size, pick on Luke. And Luke is my tag team partner who's 7 feet tall. So it quit messing with the women and it started messing with Luke. And we have on camera, on recording on this Wrestling with Ghosts show, it's the old La Follette Post Office episode. There was a hideous disembodied voice that said Luke 4 times in different times. It would just sit there and go, Luke.
Oh, God.
And the last time it broke him. I never saw this guy was a cop. He was a security guard, tough man contest guy, pro wrestler, big dude. And he got cracked, man. The last time it was just like, Luke. The last time my last shift in the place was done because we were filming on a thing and we all had little segments we were doing. I went to the all-night diner down the street, didn't tell anybody, and I was eating in my car, and they were like, "Is that Vinny? Is Vinny hey, Funkmaster? Are you in the wall screaming Luke?" And I'm like, I'm watching this on Facebook Live, and I'm like, I'm in my car eating a cheeseburger, and
Wow.
He got cracked, and he left, and he was cracked once before, and I'll tell you, and he ran, and a guy who's 350 pounds, 7 feet tall, running at you like a fullback in the game of football. I mean, it was pretty intimidating, but I mean, that place, we have a lot of stories of that town. Nobody talks about La Follette. There's a guy named Alan Miller who does a ghost walk all the time down in La Follette, and he'll take you around. There will be stuff happen on the ghost walk, and I've seen it myself. That place is rife with activity, and if we had any more renown, that would be ghost hunters would be all over La Follette all the time. There's so many stories. It's unbelievable.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to look that up because I didn't even know about that place.
Yeah, I know. We've been trying to preach about it for 5 years. Nobody knows about it.
3 ley lines cross there.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
And what I think goes on is when ley lines cross, well, 2 things happen. One, ordinary people, if you want to call them that, build sacred space, whether it's, a church or in earlier times, maybe a shrine of some sort or something that it seems like a sacred spot. The other thing that happens is, quote, spontaneous, and I think that's portals to Magonia, otherwhere, call it whatever you want, fairyland, call it whatever you want. And pardon my French again, weird shit happens. And I think that's what you're finding there. There are a lot of those. It's in a way you can find the places by looking at the ley lines and then look at a regular map, and you will find that where the ley lines cross, especially multiple lines, they're all straight lines more or less, following the curvature of the earth.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Greenfield or Dr. Greenfield?
You can ask me.
I'll be right back. You guys keep going. Okay. Sorry.
Yes, sir. You can ask me anything you want.
Have you ever heard of something called the So Joanna book?
No, I have not. Not that I can think of offhand.
Well, this is another reason why I think the Appalachian thing is so interesting is so we're making these movies about the legends and lore of the area. And we're about to release our 3rd one called Camp Smoky. And there's another one called The Hike. And there's another one called WJHCAM, which is about a radio station. And we get contacted by this guy, and I think you would be into this. And I was curious if I was hoping you would know something about it. But there's an old book called the So Joanna, only one N, I think, book. And it's an old travel guide from the 50s. And inside are a bunch of locations like coordinates and cryptid words. And so far, we have 6 movies planned out. We've been talking about them. This guy who contacted me said, "What are you guys up to?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "There is a book called the Sojoanna book, and every movie that you guys have talked about or done is referenced in this book that was scribbled in the 50s." And I was like, "I don't," and he was like, "Are you guys up to this? Are you guys the ones?" They're like all sorts of code. It mentions Spearfinger. It mentions the locations where we shot the movie. It mentions radio towers. And we have a movie about radio tower, and it's actually some of the coordinates are where the story was based. We have a movie about Oak Ridge. It's mentioned with the code word wormwood. And so I'm curious if you look this up, sir, and maybe investigate on your own if these coordinates are ley lines themselves, because I don't know anything about ley lines. But I think it's interesting to see if in this old book where we just keep having to have this coincidence where we're writing these stories where these coordinates are taking place, if the ley lines are where this guy, because nobody knows who wrote this book or who. It is like a travel book that was published, but nobody knows who scribbled in it. There's a whole bunch. Like if you go online and look up Sojoanna book, there's like a wiki of people who think they're trying to figure out what was meant, what he saw, because it does mention several cryptids and other kind of paranormal type things in the book itself too.
That's
Well,
interesting.
if you have, does it have coordinates in it?
Yeah, like handwritten, like I don't know them myself, but like, you know,
Like latitude and longitude?
latitude and longitude. That's right. Yeah.
There are several sites that you can go to on the internet. If you put in a latitude and longitude, it will show you ley lines at or very near to those coordinates. If you have coordinates, you're halfway there already. But I mean, I have not read that book. I doubt that I would have had occasion to. And I certainly would have remembered the title because that's a really unusual.
Yeah.
So, Joanna, you want to see some weird stuff? Let's go. But I had a similar experience with a textbook, a high school level textbook, when I don't know, I bought a copy of it, which is probably the only textbook that I've ever bought, but because it was called This Is Your Georgia. And in talking about history of the state of Georgia and blah, 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 it also has a bunch of anomalous phenomena that exist, some of it within walking distance of where I sit right now, and some of it, in other parts of the state. But these are all places that I eventually got around to investigating either firsthand or sending somebody to look into firsthand. So there are a number of books that go into the lore, but no, there's no side comments. I assume you mean that they were written in to this particular copy?
Yeah, they were scribbled in by same penmanship throughout the whole book. And
oh,
it's a travel.
God. You know what that sounds like? It sounds like the Vero edition of M.K. Jessup, one of the ufologists who died under mysterious circumstances, The Case for the UFO. Actually, Gray Barker republished that, a facsimile edition, but it was originally just somebody's copy of The Case for the UFO, where there were annotations in 3 different handwritings that were revelations of the whole Philadelphia experiment story. And the kicker of that is the Vero edition was a limited publication within the U.S. Navy. They seemed inordinately interested in this edition of The Case for the UFO, not for the text of the book necessarily, but for the commentary written by these 3 gypsies, and that seems to be the sort of thing that you're talking about. I'd love to compare the handwriting, and but I imagine whoever has the original there, that has become a very pricey item, and I am not a pricey person. I'm a poor man, so, as most writers are, even with PhDs.
I wonder if I'm by ley lines because we got on video of a portal opening up in our backyard, the skies, and the lights, it swept around it and shot out of it. And we have so much activity here, different types of creatures and spirits, and it's the most I've ever experienced in my life, really.
Are
Well,
you still in Baltimore?
it should be easy to find the latitude and longitude, and then find one of these sites. Just Google ley lines, and you get a lot of talk about them if you want some educational stuff. But you have these sites that do basically AI interpretation, and you can find whether you're. I will say this: it is not impossible by any means for phenomena to appear that are off the ley line grid, so to speak. There are other reasons, but I think it's a reliable place if you're looking for an explanation for phenomena. That is a first try, because it's often the case that where a place is rich in ley lines, it's also rich in phenomena of all sorts. From Bigfoot to flying saucers.
Yeah, we get stuff every single night. It's for the past year we've been living here, and I'm in Harford County now.
Okay.
But it's never a dull moment. I mean, they're either in the house or outside. I mean, I love it, but
well, if anybody wants to look up the So Joanna book, because I find it fascinating, and I kind of think it's weird that it's correlating with these movies we're just pulling out of our rear ends, basically. I put the link to the wiki in the comments there if you guys want to look at it. I mean, if you guys are into creepy mysteries and stuff like that, it's really interesting, I think, and trying to figure out what the guy was trying to document or say with these notes. It's basically he was making notes in a book.
Thank you.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much for coming on. This was so nice.
Yes.
And you guys can come on whenever you want. So
Absolutely. It's been great.
Well, thank you.
Really great.
As the hooker on the street corner says, I'm available.
Not in Baltimore. That's not what they say in Baltimore.
Well, no, I'm not available in Baltimore.
They're very much more aggressive in Baltimore.
Yeah,
things.
very.
Yeah.
But no, I greatly appreciate it, guys.
My girlfriend at the time says, "Oh, we live in a safe neighborhood." And when I get there with my kids, she says, "Don't go over to the next block. There's a gang war going on there."
Yep, that's how it is. Yep.
So, yeah, not my experience, and
thank you all again. I greatly appreciate it, and it's been very pleasurable to meet you all, and from coast to coast and around the world, ladies and gentlemen. That's a wrap. And Godspeed. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.